I felt that, with one leg and a stump, that people would look at me and they would judge me different. I wasn't the prototypical human being with 2 arms and 2 legs.
Right.
So if somebody would look at me and go, "Oh, you poor thing," and I didn't want their pity.
A space for men to have conversations without being judged and seen as weak or less manly because you express a vulnerability or something that happened in your life. I think a place or a space like that was sorely needed.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I think what I read something today, Bell's Let's Talk is this week.
Yeah, I think it's like the 31st or something.
Or soon, next week. So the whole stigmatism about it's okay to not be okay is way different now than in my day. It was like, you don't feel well, you're not feeling good, get in the pool and do it. It just literally was kind of, not to that extent entirely, but we've certainly evolved from it's okay to show weakness, because that doesn't necessarily mean that you're less of a man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, on that topic, Andrew Haley, welcome to the Gent Stock Podcast.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here.
Why don't we start with the backstory? Let's talk about you. How did it all start? You're a gold medalist, which is incredible. And I saw that you brought them with you. So at some point I'm going to want to see those bad boys.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, for those who don't know your story, walk us through it.
I would say it's kind of an everyday kid. I was 6 years old. I was playing with my twin brother. I'm from Nova Scotia originally. And I fell one night playing, and parents took me to the hospital, did some tests in North Sydney, and ultimately I had osteogenic sarcoma. And those people out there that are listening that are aware of medical terms, it's basically bone cancer, the same bone cancer that Terry Fox had. So it was a rough start. Doctors gave me a 35% chance to beat it, and luckily enough I did. And then I thought I was free and clear to leave the hospital, and then I had lung cancer. So it was another 35% chance to beat that. Of course, I did that, and then went on to play different sports, tried to be as athletic as I possibly could. Obviously, at the point in time, I lost part of my right leg to the cancer, and then continued on to where I found swimming at age 15, and that completely changed my life, my outlook on how I see somebody with a disability or how I see opportunities. And I went after it, and it turned out to be, as you mentioned, not just a gold medal career, but a Hall of Fame swimming career. So really proud of the accomplishments that I had during my life.
Wow. What was it like we've had on a few guests who've talked about, overcoming a cancer diagnosis, but they were a bit older, mature might not be the right word, but maybe mentally, like they were a bit wiser.
Yeah.
When you're a child, and that happens, do you remember at all what was going through your mind?
Not entirely, because I think you're so focused on trying to survive. I think back of those days, and people would say to me, "Andrew, you're so lucky that you were able to survive." And I say, I was lucky, but the real people that are the heroes here are my mom and dad, and all the moms and dads that are listening to this that have to deal with some sort of medical diagnosis for their kids, because it's hard being the kid in the situation. But imagine being the parent in that situation and trying to deal with that diagnosis. So we just fought. My mom and dad actually withheld the cancer diagnosis for my lung from me, because at that particular point in time, we were trying to get as much hope as possible. Outside love, hope is the most powerful word in the English dictionary. And my mom and dad gave that to me because they didn't tell me. And we just fought like hell to be able to survive. And then I think I just went back to normal kind of life. Doctors told me it'd take me a year to learn how to ride a bike. I learned in a week. I just tried to be as normal as I possibly could, knowing that I was different in a small town with one leg and a cancer diagnosis behind me, and trying to survive and trying to be accepted. I think it's different to have the disease and have it going on, but as a kid, as you mentioned, to be accepted as that kid with one leg and not be laughed at, not be looked at, and not get the weird stare in a swim change room or some sort of change room, it was difficult. It was difficult back then, and I was lucky to be able to get through it to who I am today.
How long between the bone cancer and the lung cancer?
The lung cancer was October 1980, and the leg cancer was October 1980, and then the lung cancer came about a year and 4 months after that. So I had fought all 1981 to be able to survive the leg, only to have it rear its ugly head in early 1982. So it was a long time ago, clearly, but it was no less of a struggle. I mean, obviously, advances in modern medicine may make it so I may not have lost my leg at this day and age, 2024. But back then, it was a necessary evil to be able to save my life. But it was coming at me fast and furious. I was trying to continue grades and not fail a year because of everything going on in my life, trying to be as normal as possible. As normal as possible meant having bed sheets from home, pillowcases from home, things in my room, my hospital room that reminded me of home, trying to normalize this monster as much as I could. And that's what we did. We pulled out all the stops to be able to survive.
Do you remember how you felt when you found out about the lung cancer? You said that your parents were trying to withhold that from you after overcoming the bone cancer and then getting to a point where now you have some idea essentially of what cancer is. Mm-hmm. When you found out there was a round 2, what was that like?
I think it's what I used during my swimming career. It's just that people have a fight in them. You know, I think that you often hear people say that you don't get something in life that, God knows you can't handle. And I think at that particular point in time, I just was wanting to fight. I had a lot of good doctors and a lot of good nurses at the hospital in Halifax where I was being treated at IWK. And it was just one of those things where I wanted to live, but at such a young age, I don't think you know the difference between living and dying. I don't think you know the difference between what's out there. You're not thinking ahead of going to university, going dating, driving a car. You don't think about that stuff because you're so young. But at the same time, maybe there's this sort of psychological thing inside where you just want to be able to fight with everything that you have. And the support network around me was allowing me to be able to do that. Obviously, there's a lot of people probably tried to do the same that passed away. And it was really, really a tough time because we would make friends with other parents, other kids, other patients, and to wake up the next morning and they passed away. It was an extremely humbling time, but you just look out for number one, to yourself and what you're doing. And we were able to, get through it. But then the real challenge for me, yes, there's a challenge in trying to live, but imagine that challenge when I'm walking out of the hospital room, sort of with that artificial leg and a new perspective and different than everybody else, right? So, in today's day and age, people are accepted a lot more than they are in the early 80s. And then at the same time, you're hearing stories of Terry Fox and running across Canada and the Marathon of Hope and what he's doing, and I went from a world of no cancer at all to a world of that. I didn't want to let that define me. When I went back home to North Sydney and I started my swimming career, I had an opportunity to either make something of myself or feel sorrow and pity and probably nobody would have blamed me for being negative outlook on the life. I chose to have a positive outlook on life. I chose to really go after my dreams and my goals. And then when I hit swimming at 15, the whole world completely changed because I saw a level of humanity of people with no arms and no legs and this, that, and the other thing that really brought me, joy. And that's what swimming did for me.
How did you choose positivity in that situation? Because you made a very good point about how you had every excuse in the book to say, you know what, I'm going to feel sorry for myself. I'm not going to do anything. And, rightfully so. Like, this is my situation. I have no reason to try and make something of it. I mean, people have used less for more. Mm-hmm. How did you choose at such a young age, though? Because you were essentially a teenager. How did you decide I'm going to make something out of this?
Yeah.
Like, what was the thought process there?
I think a lot of it was intrinsic, but a lot of it is who you surround yourself with. My parents and my friends and my family, they're super, super supportive. A lot of times we go through situations where, we don't have a lot of supportive people around me. You probably have to stay away from those people. Life is negative enough that we need to be able to surround ourselves with people that are going to give us a positive influence. So I think from my perspective, like I said, a lot of it was an intrinsic motivation to see what else I could do. You know, people are going to prove me wrong. Well, I'm going to prove you wrong because I'm going to do something that no one else can do. No one else has thought of. Nobody thought. I would tell people one day I'm going to be world champion. You know, we're talking about a kid in North Sydney with a population at the time around 7,500 people. You know, this is relatable to all those other people watching. It doesn't matter if it's in Cape Breton Island or Vancouver or Winnipeg, whatever, of people telling you, no, you can't do it. And it doesn't have to be swimming or something else. People will tell you, no, you can't do that. And I want to say that, yes, you can do that. Yes, you can rise above. Yes, there's a reason. Everybody listening to this podcast, everybody that's around is an amazing person with an amazing story. And I just happen to want to be able to continue my amazing story. And I wanted to show off what I could accomplish. But my accomplishments are no less different than a lot of other people who really want everything in their power to be able to overcome obstacles and overcome adversities. I just think that sometimes we let circumstances get us down, and we need to be able to take a step back, breathe a little bit, and say, you know what? Yes, I've been dealt a wrong hand. Yes, I've been dealt it's a raw deal, but I'm going to not let that define me. I'm going to be better. I'm going to push harder. And if anybody wants to join me in the journey, I'd really appreciate the support. But any of the negative people, I can do away with, and I'm not going to let those people weigh me down, because I can be awesome, and everybody can be that person.
That's inspiring. That's good. That's great.
I do what I can.
No, that's awesome. And like, I think what's inspiring about it is that, again, you had every excuse to call it quits, and instead you go, no, screw this. I'm going to do something. I'm going to make something of myself. So when you decided that you were going to was it an obvious decision to jump into sports and swimming, or was it kind of something you stumbled into and just, you know, you fell in love? And like, what was the moment there that made you think this was something I want to pursue?
Yeah, I think I was always like an athletic person, despite my disability. You know, I played golf and basketball and floor hockey. I was picked last for most of it, all of it, actually. But when I found swimming, the thing that clicked for me is I really hated people seeing me without my artificial leg on. Honestly, back then, I really felt less of a person. I felt
you didn't want them to see you without it on.
Without my artificial leg on.
Why?
Because I felt that, you know, with one leg and a stump, that people would look at me and they would judge me different. You know, I wasn't the prototypical human being with 2 arms and 2 legs.
Right.
So if somebody would look at me and go, "Oh, you poor thing," and I didn't want their pity. So, but then when I found swimming, things changed, because when I found the water and when I found what it did for me, and that's no different than anybody listening who may love, you know, dancing, chess, equestrian, whatever the case may be. But for me, it was swimming. I felt that was my oasis. That was where I could do something really, really well. And I felt really at home in the pool, and to the point where having the artificial leg off was as natural as I was going to get in any shape or form to what I was doing. So the journey that I started in the pool was really a legacy of love, and it was a legacy of learning about myself. You know, will I accept people seeing me without my leg on in the most public area of life? I'm on television. I'm swimming against other athletes. But people are accepting of the Paralympics way more nowadays than they did back then. They're accepting of people with a disability, not just physical, but emotional and you know, something that you can't see nowadays than they ever have been. So back in when I started swimming, sort of in the early 90s, it was a different ball game. But at some point, I just found I was in the right place at the right time to accomplish what I accomplished. And like I said, I turned a lot of negativity in my life into amazing positivity. I went from the lowest of lows, you know, like crash and burn outside the podium, if you will, metaphorically speaking, in life, to the top of the podium. And that very first gold medal that I had, when I was actually on the podium, standing on top of the podium at the World Championships in 1998, as something that I'd always wanted to get after, was a really special moment for me, because I had so many bad moments. To be able to stand and be the best in the world in my situation was a real, you know, tribute to what I'd gone through, but also for everybody that supported me to be able to get to that point. So I can't underestimate the power of a team. Together, everyone achieves more to be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish.
What were those low moments? What would I have seen if I was there?
You know, the low moments of just, I broke my leg one year, the stump inside my socket, and I playing basketball with my brother, and took like 4 months of recovery and wasn't able to get in the water, or just having people, look at me differently, being able to go into, the swimming pool and the change room and having a little, guy or girl whisper to mom or dad about there's a guy over there with one leg. I mean, I faced those whispers, the opportunities of going to work when I was a little bit older in life and more mature. And as you mentioned, people get older and obviously hopefully more mature. Hopefully. Yeah. But getting to the point where I'm on ice, right? And I'm trying to walk and I've got people zooming by me and I'm really slow, right? And these are things that happen now because of the one leg. And I just think back to, I think of those people that are zooming by me and think, have they been on a top of a podium in their life? Many people out there would like to be top of any podium, let alone a sport podium, playing the piano podium, whatever your podium happens to be. So I think I've accomplished a few things in my life that nobody else has, very few have accomplished. And that brings me some sort of joy. So when I'm the guy going to work and it's icy outside in the middle of the winter and I'm going super slow because I don't want to fall and people are zooming by me, that's the perspective I take. I take the perspective of I've accomplished a lot of great things in my life. I'm not going to get everything. I'm not going to go skating on the Rideau Canal in Ottawa. It's just not going to happen for me. But there's other things that are going to happen for me and they're going to be amazing. And that's how I live my life.
What advice would you give to a new or a younger athlete or just a person who's currently battling a disability that is currently holding them back from becoming the best possible version of themselves? Like in those moments that you talk about where you were feeling low, they're currently in that moment right now.
Yeah.
What would you say to them that might give them a path to come out of that?
I think you got to give yourself a break. You got to stop thinking that there's people out there that are going to conspire to want to keep you down. Think about how many people are supporting you. Think about how many people have your back. Sometimes we go through situations where when we do something, we figure out we figure out what's at stake. If I'm going to race this race and then if I get disqualified or something happens, my life's over. What I want that person out there that's listening to feel is I want them to take stock of what is not at stake here. And what's not at stake is their mom or dad, their grandparents, their dog, their best friends, the people they meet at the grocery store that'll say hello to them every time they go get groceries. Those are the things that are not at stake. And if you can take a look at your life and think that's not at stake, that'll allow you to open up to others and be able to want to do more. Because you have that rock, you have that foundation of people that are really going to support you. And certainly in life, there's people who will feel defeated and feel failure. And I want those people to never feel defeated. Because once you feel defeated, you're probably going to stop and you're going to feel sorry for yourself and you're not going to want to do that. But if you feel failure, that's okay. It's okay to feel failure because failure is just a process towards something amazing. So I want them to really listen to the words that I have that they can be amazing in life. And stop listening to others who tell them they can't be amazing. Stop listening to others who are trying to get them down and start really surrounding yourself with positive people. And there is stories throughout history of people who really want to accomplish excellence like I did. They're never going to be Andrew Haley. There's only one of those. But they can be whoever they are and they can be amazing at what they're doing. And stop comparing yourselves to what other people may have done or didn't do. And start comparing yourself with what is your why? What is your path to success? And sometimes it starts slowly. It just have some small wins. And those small wins grade into bigger wins and bigger wins after that. And I think gradually, if you can take some small wins and gain some momentum in your life, that will help you get out of whatever you're potentially going to get into. And the reality is that above all, we just need that level of positivity in our life, that internal positivity that you can accomplish excellence, you can accomplish greatness. And I'm here to tell you, based on my own story, I know you can. And who's ever listening to this and is in that situation, I wish you a ton of luck. And I know you can do it and you have my support.
What's your why?
My why is to be the best role model I can for my kids.
How many kids do you have?
I have 2.
Okay.
So my daughter Kristen's 13 and my son Christopher's 7. But I want them to, look back and know that they can accomplish great things. Like I finished my MBA last year.
Oh, congrats.
And thanks. And so I'm going to be, going to convocations in Queens and in June. And I want them to know that even though I didn't need to take it, even though it was sort of a pain and to be able to go through that process for a year.
You can say it a pain in the ass.
Yeah, okay, it's a pain in the ass. But it's a pain in the ass. But it was something that I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you're never too old to be able to do that. And so that's what I kind of took stock in, the fact that it's like, I'm going to go after this because it's something that I always wanted to do. Yeah. And I want to show my kids, I want to show others that despite life's challenges, despite life, getting you down in some cases, if you really want something in life, go after it. Like I did with the MBA, like I did with the swimming, like I do with my motivational speaking. I want to be able to be that person that others can look to for inspiration, so then they can go out and then they can be amazing. And those people are they're literally all around us. But I think you really need to look inward to say, like, what do I want to do? So my why, is to be there for my kids and be the most influential person I can be for others around me, to be able to prop up them in businesses and whatnot. But for them, I want them to know that their why is just to live and to feel that they have meaning. And if you feel you have meaning and you're ready to go, then you can accomplish some really great things. But it starts with the internal belief in themselves.
You mentioned the MBA.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
Ever since I took a Bachelor of Commerce at Dalhousie when I was, obviously many years younger. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to get that master's degree in business. And then I started into, obviously, I had already started swimming into them, but I started working full time for the Toronto Blue Jays. I was here in Toronto. That went on for many years until I switched. But I always came back to the fact that it was sort of a box left unchecked in terms of what I wanted to accomplish. I knew it wasn't going to be I knew it wasn't going to be easy, anything but easy. But it was one of those things where I was willing to dig deep, put in the effort, despite having full-time job, speaking, kids, whatever, and go after it. And I'm so thrilled that I was able to persevere through those moments. And I think everybody out there listening, I want them to know that it's never too late to go after something. You may have kids, you may have a life, you may have things going on. Why can't you be a triathlete? Why can't you learn the piano? Why can't you learn another language? Stop making excuses for yourself why you can't do that, and start making plans for yourself why you're going to go after your own gold medal moment. And if you have that gold medal moment, you're going to feel a lot better. Sometimes I think of ourselves as having our own personal book, and every day in our lives, a new page is written in this book. And if my kids down the road ever read my book, I don't want my book to say that I quit on my dreams, I quit on my goals, I took the easy road out. I want them to read my metaphorical book here and say, Andrew had a choice to make. He had a choice to make of taking the MBA or not taking the MBA, of going after everything full force for world championships and be a world champion, or just feeling sorry for themselves. So that's kind of how I live my life a little bit, is to be able to show those around me that I made choices that wasn't the easiest of choices. But that's why they put somebody on the moon. That's why there's so many other things that we've done in our lives that people go, wow, that's great. Because people take chances, and I was one that took those chances.
Talk to me about that gold medal moment of yours. Can we bring them out?
So I'm gonna. So it's going to be. So basically, what happened was, I had started my career because I wanted to. I'd always said to myself I was going to be a world champion one day, and world championships were every 4 years. So this was back in about 1991. I wanted to be a world champion one day. 1994, I went to my second world championships. I won 3 bronze medals. Still great, but it wasn't gold medals.
Right.
And then after that, I went to world championships in 1998 and swam 100-meter butterfly, and I won. And then from there, so after winning, So after winning, I got this medal, and then it's small, you know, it's not like much to it, but on the back of it, it says Andrew Haley, 100-meter fly, October 14th, and the word finally. And because the first word I said after I won the race and I saw the scoreboard was, finally, I'm a world champion. You know, finally shoveling the snow off the car in days like, you know, snow days in the winter times, whatever. Those are the moments where you really have to dig deep. And the reality is, to win this medal or win the gold medal, the Paralympic medal, a lot of things, you know, people don't realize, but training, you have to go through a lot of boring, because the boring is moments where you need to hone your craft. You're practicing in those mornings that the lights aren't on. When I talk about lights, I'm not talking about physical lights. I'm talking about the lights of stardom, the lights of the big meets, the world championships, the Paralympics. Those are the end result of what you're doing in the moment at your particular venue of choice in terms of training, to be able to get to the point where you're on the blocks and you have no regrets whatsoever. So when you dive in the pool and you're able to, you know, finish, so then you win a gold medal like this in Sydney, Australia in the relay, and set a world record on the last night of competition with 3 amazing other athletes on my team. Those are the moments where you can look back at all the training and say, that was worth it. But that's 1% of the time, if 1% of the time. The other 99% of the time, you are slugging away. You know, you're cursing your coaches, your physio, chiro, like all those things going in to trying to be the best you can, eating properly. And then finally you get that moment in your life. And so I would ask that question to people listening, is if you have a moment that came up to you and opportunity knocked and you can walk through the door to that opportunity, would you be ready for it? Would you be ready mentally and physically to be able to walk through that door for opportunity, whatever that opportunity is? You know, so for me, the opportunity for me was to be able to go through and train and be the best I could be in that particular moment, and be able to have, you know, multiple medals that I can now share with, you know, speaking audiences, my kids, whatever the case may be, is amazing to be able to go through it, but it's also amazing to be able to share it. Sure, and I'm so lucky to be able to do that.
That finally moment, that must have been, I can't imagine how much was pent up waiting to be released, that sort of comes out just as you finally win that race.
Yeah. So bringing people back into the situation for a moment. So basically what happens is you go into the ready room and you show your credentials and you get your lane. So in this case, I would have been in lane 4 as the fastest swimmer from the morning. But there's nerves, and if you didn't have nerves, you wouldn't be human. And your arms are going flailing, and you're just this nervous energy, because this is the moment that I've dreamt about for my whole, you know, for the last 8 years since I started my swimming career. And many athletes have succumbed to these moments, right? You go out too fast, you're at 80 meters, and then all of a sudden you slowly see the other athletes pass you by, and then they win the medals, and you finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and you're like, you'll lament the opportunity lost. But in this particular case, I put so much effort, so much training into my mental aspect, and putting it all on the line in the pool at training. So I knew when I got to that moment, even though there's going to be heightened sense of whatever, is just to keep it normal, right? The pool's 50 meters. I've got a 50-meter pool at home. Sure, it's a different situation because it's all in the line. But go back to what I said a little bit earlier, what's not at stake. And was able to focus on what's not at stake and be able to channel that stress, that pressure into excitement, and be able to go there and realize that I'm not the only one feeling this. There's 7 other athletes here that are probably feeling this. So because we're probably all in the same situation, the victor goes the spoils, but also the victor goes the person who has be able to conceptualize what this means. So when I dove off the block, I told myself, I feel amazing the first few meters, the first few strokes. Keep your stroke fast. Keep your stroke loose. Easy speed. Being able to go up the pool. When I touched the 50-meter mark, I took a quick glance at the scoreboard because it was right above me. I knew I was leading. But then I also knew that if I was leading, I had the best last 50 in the whole pool. And I felt a lot of confidence, and not let other people's race pattern dictate what I was going to do. You know, that's a key consideration of being performance.
You almost have to block out what the others are doing. Otherwise, you're stuck in your brain.
Doesn't matter.
They're going faster. This one's going better, whatever.
Yeah, because reality is they could be swimming and then not covering their race plan, and I could get off my race plan, and then it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, and any swimmer out there will tell you to keep to your own race plan. So I did that. And when I was able to touch that, like you mentioned, that moment, that finally moment, and was able to get it engraved at the pool, keep my medal close, being able to watch it, because I wasn't going to let it out of my sight, you know. It was just a really great time. And then a few days later, we were able to take home a gold medal as well in the relay. So I was able to win 2 gold medals. But I mean, obviously being able to win an individual gold medal is just...
It's validation for all the
validation
years.
For everything. I didn't have anybody helping me. You know, being able to go the time I did, I think it was a Canadian record at the time. Wasn't a world record, but that was fine, right? You know, remember the winners. So, and having that in my back pocket to know that after everything that I went through, all the cancer diagnosis, all the bad moments, everything else, to be able to have that one moment to finally win, that's a special word for me.
Were your parents able to see that?
No. So they went to other competitions, but it was in Christchurch, New Zealand. So it was pretty far, and they went to they saw the gold, they saw the gold medal at the Paralympics, which is this medal, but they didn't really have a tendency to go to world championships.
Right.
Paralympics were the marquee event, and you know, it was every 4 years, and the world championships every other 2 years.
Right.
But they didn't go to those competitions.
What was the first conversation with your parents like after winning gold?
Well, given the time zone difference, it was quite difficult, but I think, you know, being able to call them and share with them the total excitement of being able to do that. And, you know, I planned on traveling around Australia for a few months after the fact, and New Zealand, South Island, New Zealand as well. So that was amazing. But I think having that phone call and sharing it with 2 people who had always supporting me, whether it was emotionally or financially or, you know, fill in the blank, was really, really special. Also special, the fact that bringing that back home to Nova Scotia, like a small province who, you know, people are struggling to, compete and do well. And there I am, you know, doing extremely well, and showing those with other disabilities that, you know, in a lot of cases, the limitations that we have on us is basically what we set on ourselves. Right. It's not what others set on us.
The piece about being an Olympian and winning gold, I have a really, really good friend right now who is in the process of trying to compete for the Paris Olympics in beach volleyball.
Yeah.
He was on the podcast as well. And one of the things that I've been thinking about more and more is, you know, for an Olympian, just watching his journey, seeing how he has to basically self-fund a lot of his journey, you know, through either sponsorship or fundraising or just working jobs here and there. And I'm just curious, as someone who has made it to the top, won the gold, the sense I get from at least the Olympics in Canada for those athletes is that it's not necessarily, it doesn't equate to a windfall where now you don't have to work anymore. You essentially have to come down from that very high and become a normal human.
Pretty much.
What's that like?
I mean, it's all about, you know, a lot of cases. I mean, there's certain athletes in Canada who have the marquee value of name recognition. They can probably get things covered. Right. But a lot of us may not get to that point, if you will. I remember back in 1992 when I went to my first Paralympics in Barcelona, and the Olympic ring that I'm wearing, that's what they gave us, but I had to pay $250 for it.
Oh, geez.
I had to pay for something that was about me representing my country.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 1996, and we stopped paying. So it was a good deal. 1992, I paid $1,000. My parents paid $1,000 for me to compete at the Barcelona Paralympics. I won a bronze medal, brought home to Canada, but I still had to pay the money, right? So we weren't financially sufficient then. Then later on, we didn't have to pay. Right. You know, fast forward to now, yes, certainly that story you just mentioned about your friend is not uncommon. You know, people will work odd jobs. They'll do fundraisers. They'll you know, a lot of people at that level will get federally funded. It's called carding. So they will get about $18,000 tax-free, which is great. But certainly if you're traveling, like volleyball athletes travel to southern countries because, they want nice weather while it's cold here in Canada, unless you're indoors, but I suspect this person's probably a beach volleyball player.
Yes.
So you can't necessarily get the same mentality that you're going to get in a beach inside than you are going to if you're in the beaches of Copacabana, for instance, where the games were held in 2016 in Rio. So it's a challenging situation where you don't want to rely on the bank of mom and dad. You don't rely on loans. But the fact of the matter is, in Canada, the majority of our Olympic and Paralympic athletes are faced with financial difficulties to compete for our country. So when you watch them on TV and they do well, there are so many other people to thank, because they're not getting there alone, because it is a journey to get there. And if you can compete, whatever that happens to be. And the other thing is, like, sometimes people will look at athletes, our athletes or other athletes, and say, well, that person only finished 8th or 12th or 15th. Sure, maybe they did. But just to go and compete is an enormous accomplishment. And those athletes that can compete, and thankfully our beach volleyball players are competitive in the world scene, at least the last time I checked, that hopefully those individuals will get the true recognition that they deserve, regardless of their result.
I think it's fascinating that we seem to overlook so quickly how hard it is to get to the Olympics, and we just criticize the athletes for not coming in first, second, or third. Or even the ones that come in second and third, we're like, but it's not gold.
Yeah.
It's a weird place to be. I imagine as an athlete on the receiving end of that, you almost feel as if no matter what you do, it's not enough. Unless you win gold, and even then it's like, well, are you ready to win gold again? Yeah,
it's magnified from the Paralympic perspective, because, from an Olympic perspective, if you win a medal, you're going to be being interviewed by, the consortium that does the Olympics, because you are celebrated because you're a medalist. And sometimes fourth, and I've been fourth many, many times. Fourth is not good, so because you're so close. Yeah. But you want to be able to. This is not for a lack of effort. Somebody who's fifth or sixth or seventh, that's still a tremendous accomplishment. And hopefully they're interviewed, and hopefully they're celebrated, and whatever the case may be. But I look back and say, like, what are your goals? What did you want to accomplish? And did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish, regardless of what everybody else thinks? We don't really, who cares what everybody else thinks? What do you think? What does your support network think? If you're in track and field and you're doing, let's say, shot put, and the best Canadian result, I'm making this up, was, let's say, 25th in the world, and you are 24th, and you were the best Canadian shot put ever at the Olympics, shouldn't that be celebrated? But at the same time, people look and they go, oh, the guy's only 24th, or the girl's only 24th. But things take progress. We were not super competitive, I think, in cross-country skiing for a while, until Becky Scott won I think it was a gold medal many years ago. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, Canada can do well in cross-country skiing because of her, right? So it's just the way it goes. I feel like
it just takes the one to break that initial barrier.
Yeah.
And then suddenly everyone else takes it more seriously.
Yeah.
What's the current, I don't know if you're still up to date with it, but what is the current standing with the Olympic Committee in Canada and all those things in terms of, supporting its athletes as they go through that process? Obviously, we've got, the next games are the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. As an athlete or someone who's in the process of competing to get on that stage, are they, is there support mechanisms? Are they better today than they were back then? Or is there still room to grow? Where are we in that sense?
I think there's always room to grow. I think corporate Canada could probably step up a little bit more than they have, but that it's only the pie is only so much for a lot of these companies, right?
Right.
Own the Podium is there right now, which helps athletes get to that next level. Like I said, the federal funded program, the sports organizations help in a lot of the more wealthier sport organizations like Swimming Canada will do pay for a lot of the expenses when we were swimming, versus some other like Water Ski Canada, may not have as much funding because it's based on Olympic results, Paralympic results, and they may not be there. So that's the challenge sometimes. That's why sometimes sports fight so hard to be included in the Paralympic program, because in cases like Canada, you can get funding because you are a part of the Paralympic or Olympic program. So it's just a constant battle. But ultimately, the thing that wins out over money, if you can do it, is passion. You know, if we have that passion, you know, every athlete that are competing for Canada has a passion, regardless of finances, to be able to do what they can do. And I know there's athletes who are taking out loans and traveling. And, you know, if you're a speed skater, you're traveling all over the place, right? You need to go and compete. You need to compete with the best so you can potentially one day be the best.
Right.
It's not just you're not just going to compete in Canada, even though the best may be in Canada, and that's it. You need that experience.
You need that exposure to the other players.
You need the exposure to the other players,
Right.
and you just need to be able to learn. So I think for me, when I was younger, I mean, I got lucky because, yeah, I had to pay a little bit, but Swimming Canada took care of its athletes. And being able to go to those different competitions and being able to see the different athletes gave me a lot more pep in my step or confidence because of the one leg. I came back and I'm being celebrated and be like, oh yeah, I do have one leg. Yeah, I do have a disability. Yes, I am a Paralympic athlete. Being proud of it. Right. Whereas before it was like, you kind of say, I'm an Olympic athlete. Well, I'm not an Olympic athlete. I have a disability. So I'm a Paralympic athlete. But at the same time, the motto and the drive is exactly the same as those individuals. So I can completely relate to somebody's quest for excellence, somebody's quest for being the best they can be, their own gold medal moment, whatever that happens to be in Paris this summer, because I love performance and I love stories about how somebody's overcome the odds to be able to be where they are, whether that could be fourth. But, you know, so it's an amazing stuff.
What's the biggest difference right now between the Olympic process and the Paralympic process? If you're an athlete vying for a spot in the Olympics versus an athlete vying for a spot in the Paralympics, what would you notice the most?
Can't comment on all sports because I don't know entirely every sport, but I'll comment on, at least in swimming's sake, and I'm sure it's the case for a lot of other sports, they will hold a dual championship. So let's say that the Pan Am Sports Center or the Olympic Pool in Montreal or Victoria Sanish Commonwealth Pool in Victoria are holding the trials. They will be at the same time. They will announce the Olympic team as a nomination ratified by the Canadian Olympic Committee and the Canadian Paralympic Committee. They'll nominate their athletes at that particular competition. So I think that's a really, really inclusive sport organization. Not every organization has the opportunity to be able to do something like that. I know track does it as well. So that's really cool. I mean, obviously you're not going to be able to do rugby. I mean, we got wheelchair rugby and regular rugby. You're not going to have those at the exact same time. Right. It's just physically not going to work. But I think as we continue moving ahead, I think as acceptance happens, a lot of those sport organizations are going to realize that there's value in athletes and performance and great performance. And whether that comes from a Paralympic athlete or an Olympic athlete, performance is performance. And I think that's where a lot of the leaders of sport organizations have sort of, they're hitting the mark.
Is there a disadvantage for Paralympians?
Versus what?
In terms of like the actual process to becoming a Paralympian, like is it a harder process for Paralympians versus Olympians? I guess I'm trying to understand if there's a difference in the like the trajectory or the pathway to getting to the Olympics.
Yeah, I think it's harder for Paralympians to a certain case because consider if you're blind and you're trying to swim in a pool with other athletes. If you're sighted, you can seamlessly fit into that like I did for many, many years. But if you're blind, you need somebody to tap you at one end, tap you at the other end. You know, you can't judge, people going by you as you used to. You need more time. You may sway a little bit in the pool. Right. So it's difficult for those types of individuals. The other thing is that, there's the doubt from a Paralympic athlete. Can I do this? Am I good enough for this? So sure, Olympic athletes have doubts too. But the Paralympic athlete, are they willing to put themselves out there? Do they even know Paralympic sport exists? I fell into it because my aunt knew the national coach who got me involved. Right. There's other stories that I know of personally of people who are just doing physio or rehab and found out about it by complete fluke. So there's athletes out there who just don't know about it. There's athletes out there who are from a small town like I was, who don't have facilities that can help those individuals, right? Or they're in a team sport like, say, wheelchair curling, and they need their teammates to be able to help them do what they need to do. They need a team to play to challenge themselves in terms of how different scenarios work out.
Right.
So that the team game is a little bit different than the individual game.
If you can go back in time and give younger Andrew one piece of advice, knowing everything you know today, what would that piece of advice be?
Do things with a smile on your face and never stop believing that you can be great despite circumstances. And, I kind of do that a little bit because I have a 7-step process that I kind of use throughout my career that kept me on the straight and narrow, including take a break before you break.
Go on.
Keep going, and the other thing is I have this thing back in my mind that throughout my career was, and I think this is relevant for a lot of people. So back in 1992, around 1991, 92, I'm sure somebody would probably correct me, but the ESPN awards, the ESPY awards, and there was a coach named Jimmy Valvano, and he was from Rutgers basketball, and he was dying of cancer. He had cancer all throughout his body. And he was announcing his Jimmy V Foundation on this particular broadcast. And I just started my swimming career, and I was very influential on really cool things. And he said at the end of it, whispering in breath, he said, "Don't give up. Don't ever give up." And he was saying that not because of the cancer, he's saying that because of the situation to advance cancer research. Don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your goals. So in my 7-step process, I put one of them was don't give up, don't ever give up. And it wasn't a nod necessarily to him. It was a nod to, I had cancer once, I'm not giving up because I have too much to live for. Don't ever give up. The second half of it, I had cancer twice in lung cancer. And don't let that get me down because I had so much to live for. So yeah, there'd be moments in my life where I would be, not defeated, but like feeling the failure. Oh, I was fourth, or I got disqualified, or whatever. And then I go back to the 7-step process, and I think, I defeated cancer twice. Like, there has to be some value there. There has to be some meaning there. There has to be something to push me forward. There has to be something there that in bad times, comparatively speaking to the cancer, not really bad. And that was the point. Right? Is to say to myself, Andrew, you accomplished great things here. You overcame something that maybe not a lot of people will overcome, especially with 35% chance to live. And that's what drove me forward. And so I would really recommend people listening to this, and you can hit me up, no problem, social, I'm happy to help, but is to be able to always go after what you want to go after, but what that goes back to the why. Like, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on yourself where you are 17 years old, 16 years old, and you need to train the next morning, and somebody says to you, "Hey, Andrew, you want to go to the dance on Friday night at high school?" And like, you know what, I really would, but I'm going to miss workout tomorrow morning. You know what, that's okay. I don't mind missing workout for the dance. I never did that because I always felt that if I did that, somebody else in the world was in the pool that Saturday morning and they were going to be better than me. And I never wanted them to be better than me. And that's the mentality that I took. And that's why I never missed a workout, because I would feel that I was a little bit behind everybody else. And when I got to the blocks, I made sure that every possible point in my life that led to success was going to be there, or I was going to die trying.
Wow. That's incredible. Andrew, thank you so much.
That was great. I love this. It was amazing to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the thing that resonates with me the most is that comment you made, I think, towards the beginning of this conversation about when you're walking and it's particularly icy outside and people are speeding by you, and you, for a moment, you're letting yourself think, they're all walking faster than me. I'm just struggling to make sure I stay on balance. And then it's that one tiny reminder, I'm a gold medalist. You've accomplished so much. And I think it's such a powerful message because it's a reminder that comparing yourself to other people and what they're doing will never lead you down a path of any kind of happiness. You'll always find someone doing something different than you that you're going to want, and it could send you down the rabbit hole, but rather focus on the things you've done, the fact that you've accomplished so much, the fact that you've beaten cancer twice, which is incredible. Yeah, this was inspiring. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It was great to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.